welcome to another edition of Let'sRun.com's Track Talk. This is your host, Let'sRun.com co-founder Robert Johnson. Very excited to be here. A Chicago Marathon edition of Let's Run Track Talk. I am joined by my fellow co-founder, my fellow roommate, Weldon Johnson, who is in New York City calling in. Weldon, glad to have you. And of course, most importantly, our boots on the ground, the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Galt in Chicago. John, what's it like in the Windy City right now?
You know, it's pretty exciting here, Robert. I got in basically just as the press conference was starting, and yeah, I kind of feel like there's a buzz here. There's way more people in the press conference than last year, for sure. You've got three reporters You've got three reporters from the UK, just here for Mo Farah, which is pretty interesting, and then there's some Japanese contingent for Yuki Kouchi and for some of the Japanese runners, Suguru Osako in the field. And then, you've got the regular batch of very talented Kenyan athletes like Geoffrey Kirui and Abel Kirui and, Mozenet Garamu, who set the course record in Dubai. And, you've got the defending champion, Galen Rupp. So really people are excited. I think definitely a lot more interesting. The pacemakers are back. We're hoping for a fast race on Sunday. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, people should certainly. It's the most excited I've been in Chicago for a long, long time, and for good reason. I mean, I didn't really set up the race when I did my quick intro, but you have so many storylines. I mean, we have so many guys this year in not only big names with big fast PRs, but they're clearly in great form in 2018. We're talking about the men's race. You have, just in the men's race alone, the 2018 Dubai champion, the 2018 Tokyo champion, 2018 Rotterdam champion, 2018 Prague champion, who is, of course, Galen Rupp, and the defending champion. He's the first time an American has defended in Chicago in 15 years. He's the first American-born champion to come back to Chicago in 35 years. And then the race also features Sir Mo Farah in his third career marathon. And then, of course, Geoffrey Kirui, our number one ranked marathoner in the world last year. So much on the men's storyline. Women, not too shabby. We're going to spend most of our time talking about the men's race. But the women, from the American perspective, it's certainly taken a hit with Jordan Hesse and Amy Craig out. But we got three sub-220 women in Roja Dereje, only 21 years of age, Florence Kippagat, and Berhane Dababa. So just some really good stuff. But, John, we just put up the article that you've read. We've already published one article from the press conference on what you learned from Galen and Mo today at the press conference. I think those are the two biggest names. And we have that up. We're going to add another article later. But let's go through the highlights of the Mo Farah and Galen Rupp, what you learned from talking about them today. What was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is essentially, people can try to make this into, a big rivalry. I guess it kind of is. We're definitely excited about it. These two former training partners, they were Olympic gold and silver in 2012. But when you get down to it, it's not like they left on bad terms. They just sort of drifted apart. I mean, they started training together for the same events for a couple of years, but then, in 2014, Rupp and his wife gave birth to twins. And ever since then, he sort of wanted to spend more time at home in Portland with his family. And, they've got another son who was born in 2016. And essentially, if you look at the last few years, he hasn't really left Portland much for training stints. And Farah, of course, likes to go to Ethiopia for altitude training, likes to go to Flagstaff, sometimes Font Romeo. He's all over the world. And Rupp just, he wasn't interested in doing that anymore. Farah always talks about how he misses being away from his family, but Rupp, is he's one step further. He just really doesn't like leaving them. And he went so far as to say, I might get some certain performance gains by working out and training at altitude, but I think that's offset more by, being in an environment which I like, being home with my family. He just thinks that's a big boost to his mental well-being and to his training. So, it's not like they just started hating each other and had to leave and, had to be pulled apart. It was essentially that their lives sort of went in different directions, and then Mo left the group last year, and that's really all there is to it. That said, they both know, that each other represents a big challenge. They both want to beat each other. Neither of them would really tip their hand as to who is better in the longer workouts. I tried pressing them on that, because obviously they had to have done tempos and stuff together. Neither of them really wanted to give an edge to the other, but I think it's going to be a good race. And really, we don't know who the better marathoner is at this point, and we're going to find out on Sunday.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. When I read that article, and the big takeaway for me initially was Rupp saying we still have a great relationship. I mean, I was on the message board earlier today. People were talking about Rupp and Farah, and there was a comment from a visitor, and he said, no matter what happens, their agent's an idiot if he doesn't play up this rivalry. And first of all, I would never say Ricky Sims, one of the top agents in the world who represents both Farah and Rupp, is not an idiot. But, the guy, I was sort of surprised by that. I thought there might be, I guess I expected some PR speak, but I was surprised to say that, for Rupp to say they have a great relationship. And great's a pretty strong word, but because we didn't hear about them playing Xbox. I guess maybe fathers aren't playing Xbox as much, but it just seemed weird to me that they used to train together. Then even when they're both still in the Nike Oregon project, they stopped training together so much, and then now they're separate. So the fact that sort of their friends was, as a fan, was a little bit disappointing to me. I wanted to hear some, like a boxing match. It's much more exciting, even if they're just faking it. Sort of some animosity. But hey, classy move by them both. But to me, a second read through, John, when I was talking to you off air, you said, they didn't really say much. To me, I think there is a big takeaway here. A hidden thing in there that people are talking about. One of the threads on the message board right now is Mo Farah must be crapping himself, although the crapping is blanked out. And they're like, people were talking that Rupp would pull out with an injury. Farah must be scared. And when I read that, is it just me? I'm probably the least accomplished runner of the three of us on the podcast, but why would Farah be crapping himself? I know he's not as accomplished as Rupp in the marathon, but he's 21. He's never lost to Galen Rupp in a race in his entire life, except for one race, 21-1 against him when he fell down in a mile. It's kind of hard to win a race and fall down in a mile. So, I totally disagree with that message board thread. If I'm Farah, I'm thinking very confidently, I've owned this guy. I'm always going to own this guy. It's kind of like a college cross-country team. There's a pecking order, and generally the number one, the alpha male doesn't lose to the beta male. So, before today, Weldon and John, we haven't heard from Weldon in a while. Just on paper, who were you guys expecting to win this race?
I'm definitely figuring Mo Farah is the one to win. Of the two, Galen's a fabulous marathoner, but why wouldn't I pick Farah? He's 21-1 versus Rupp. Until Galen beats him at something, you got to go with Mo. I think the sort of crazy thing is that, the closest they ever were was the Olympic 10,000 meters. So Galen's shown in big races he can be very, very, very close, and he may be the better marathoner. So it should be a great one.
Yeah, John. Yeah. What did you think?
I've been going back and forth on this all week because, Galen Rupp, really, if you look at the marathons he's put up, the only bad one was the Boston where he dropped out this year, and that I don't even count that as bad. That's just, I throw that one away because of the weather. He's such a good marathoner, but at the same time, Mo Farah, you could argue that Mo's run in London this year. I don't know if, could you argue that that's more impressive than anything Rupp's done? I know Rupp won Chicago last year, but the competition in London this year was way stronger, and Rupp did medal at the Olympics, but London gets a field that's, on par with the Olympics most years. Farah really impressed me in London, and I think if they're going to try and run 2:04 or, 2:05, I kind of favor Farah in a really fast race like that. Something I feel like we've seen Rupp kick well in marathons, and I guess, maybe Farah can do that too. We don't really know. He admits himself he's still learning what he's good at and what he's not good at the marathon. But yeah, at gunpoint, if I had to pick which one of the two will finish higher, I would pick Farah. But to be honest, if I'm picking who's going to win the race, I'm going with Geoffrey Kirui.
Yeah, for me, I think that it's clear in the sense of...
Yeah, I thought the Kirui pick, the focus here totally has been on Mo Farah and Galen Rupp. Sort of rightfully so. They have just their household names worldwide and in America, and the focus of our sites, the English-speaking audience. Obviously, they speak, in Kenya, but until a year ago, 95% of people had no idea who Geoffrey Kirui was. But the world number one marathoner, according to Let'sRun.com last year. And he looked, to be cruising on his way to winning this year's Boston Marathon in just atrocious conditions. until, I don't know what, Mother Nature struck, and, he still ended up second, which was better than most guys, right? But the big question for Kirui is, how does he do in a paced race? And, John, did you get any indication? So jumping all over the place here. The question, is about the pacing. Kirui's a championship marathoner. He's done great in Boston. He's done great at Worlds, but pace marathons, he's never done that great. And we have two other guys in the field who have done fabulous in pace marathons. Mozenet Geremeyu and Birhani Lagesse, 204 flat and 204.15 this year in Dubai. So any indications on what the pace is going to be tomorrow or Sunday? Excuse me.
Yeah, it looks like I talked to Rupp, and he said they hadn't really confirmed it yet, but he said expect something between 62 flat and 63 flat. Tim Hutchings, when he was moderating the press conference, threw out 62 flat to 62.30, and Mo Farah said he'd be fine with doing 62. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be in the 62 to 63 flat range, and I already guessed closer to 62 flat, but again, maybe they bump it up by 15 or 30 seconds depending on the specific weather forecast.
Right. So before we start talking about other guys, Weldon, I want to keep it here on Farah and Rupp. I mean, if you look, as you guys both said, the head-to-head records, you've got to give Farah the acknowledgement, the favorite status here, even though Rupp is out of the park in the marathons. The only reason you think Rupp would win would be sort of common sense, in the sense of, you would think that, hey, a man who's run 3:28 for 1,500, one of the 10 fastest man in history at 1,500, his range should not extend all the way to the marathon like Mo Farah. So you would think, maybe his range only extends through maybe the half marathon. He's not going to be at the marathon, or maybe Rupp's better at the longer distance stuff. But we don't know that. I mean, their PRs are fairly similar. To me, the 206 that I think it's 206.21 and 206 for Farah, and like 206.07
for Rupp.
07 for Rupp. But to me, the Farah one is much more impressive. It was way hot in London. I think it was in the 70s, right? And they went out in 61 flat. That's pretty ridiculous. But to me, John, I don't even know if you realize this. When you read your article, if it's now up on the website, clearly Weldon hasn't read it yet because it had the pacing in there. Farah said in there was a huge acknowledgement in there. John asked him, who's got the advantage based on practice. He said, I know Galen and he knows me. I'm not going to give away secrets, but I think we know each other pretty well. I know what he was good at, what he was better than me, and what I was better than him at. So right there's an acknowledgement by Farah that Rupp was better than him at some things in practice. And that could have been a longer run. If you think about it, if you never lose to a guy in a race, you might be better than him at basically everything. That to me was sort of interesting, that, maybe Rupp could pull this off. And if you look at the LetsRun.com polls in our men's preview, we asked who finishes higher, Galen Rupp or Mo Farah. Let's Run Nation is going 2/3 Mo Farah, 67%, 33% for Rupp. Now, we also asked, I wanted to see who was more popular on Let's Run, the U.S.-based website. Rupp is sort of a controversial figure, as is Farah, I guess, because they're both part of the Nike Oregon Project. But who do you want to finish higher? It was the exact opposite. It was 66% Rupp, 34% Mo Farah. So that part was interesting to me. But if we're talking about the overall winner, and Weldon said, Kirui is not proven at a fast-paced marathon, which is true. But one thing in Boston this year, the pace was so slow for him, he blew it open. And, while he tied up late, you wouldn't think he has a problem. But it's pretty even in the Let's Run Nation. 34% are picking Geoffrey Kirui to win, 29% are picking Mo Farah, and then 15% are picking Galen Rupp. And then after that, no one's above 10%. Mozenet Geremeyu is at 9%. Augustine Choki, crazy, is at 4%. Which is kind of absurd, given his range. So the Dubai champion Mozenet Geremeyu. So go ahead, Levin.
Yeah, I apologize. Super hot right now on LetsRun.com. Farah wants to go out in 62 flat. Rupp says it's okay with him. WTF? So
yeah. One thing to me that's interesting about that is
an hour.
We know that I thought it was a good sign that Farah wants to run fast. The record, for him to beat. Only one person not born in Africa has ever broken 206, And that just recently happened when Sander Moen ran 2:05:48 in Fukuoka last December. So that would be the European record. It would also sort of be, well, I guess Farah was born in Africa, but that's certainly a mark very similar to the mark that Rupp's going to want to get with Cannucci anyways. And then, I talked about all these champions being here, but not only are we going to have possibly a European record, possibly an American record, but we could also see the Japanese record. There's $900,000 on the line if Suguro Osaka is also in the Nike Oregon project. If he breaks the 2:06:11 mark, which is pretty crazy. John, did you get any sense of whether Osaka did he ever train with Farah and Rupp, or is he sort of doing his own thing in Poland? It fascinates me that we had three of the best distance runners, one of the best from Japan, one of the best from Britain, and one of the best from the U.S. all in the same city, and they barely worked out together. But do we have any idea what Osaka was doing with these guys, if anything?
No, he had gone by the time that I wrapped up some of my interviews, and I didn't ask Farah or Rupp about him, so not entirely sure. I do know that Pete Julian sort of handles his training, as opposed to, I think Salazar does Rupp and Julian sort of does Osaka, but Salazar will have some input into Osaka, but I don't think they work out together. I not to my knowledge, but again, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah. So
I mean, if Moen can run a 2:05, don't you guys think Rupp can do it a lot faster? And there is the question of if these shoes do help. If the shoes help up to 1%, that's over a minute. So
I'm sure Moen was wearing the shoes. I mean, yeah. If you look at Moen, I was looking at him.
I know, but he's not a big name. He's run a 2:05:48, I think you said, Robert.
I agree.
Galen Rupp runs laps around him as a distance runner.
Yeah, I mean, Moen's a 13:20, 28:15 guy. He has run 59:48 for the half before his 2:05. But I mean, like 2 years ago, this Moen was a 13:30, 28:25, 62:19 guy, and now he's a 2:05 marathoner. I mean, that is crazy. He now lives and trains with Canova, if he can think about it, Rupp is at sub 13 is 5-6 seconds a mile faster than that 13:20, significantly faster than 28:15. Obviously, probably 10 seconds a mile. So if he goes 5 seconds a mile faster than Moen, I mean, that was 2 minutes in a marathon. That would be 2:03, which is crazy. I mean, Rupp is the 89th fastest man in history at 2:06:07. And Moen is 72nd at 2:05:48. But yeah, I think that we actually have a time goal or a time prediction on the Let's Run poll. How fast does Galen Rupp run in Chicago? And 35% are picking 2:05. I mean, only 6% are picking 2:04. A 2:04 based on his other PRs would not shock me. I'm a little bit down on the times just because of the weather, and that's one thing we haven't talked about. But the forecast is far from ideal. Saturday, John, the race starts at 7:30 local time
on Sunday. Yes.
Excuse me, Sunday. So if you're looking at it now, I mean, the latest from weather.com, thunderstorms. It's going to be 60 degrees. So 60 degrees at the start and 63 at the finish. That's pretty good. I mean, that's not bad temperature-wise. But it's going to be 65% chance of, 70%, 7:30 start, 65% chances of rain at the start and 70% chance at the finish. Humidity is going to be 90%. So, humidity really doesn't mean that much. If you look at the dew point, and there's a fabulous website called findmymarathon.com. Like if you just type in Chicago Marathon, Google will send you there. Findmymarathon.com, weather, Chicago. They list the dew point. Now they're listing slightly lower humidity, 85%, but even if the humidity is 85%, the dew point is going to be 57, which is not ideal. Really anything like under, it's not terrible. I mean, if you look at some of these websites that sort of analyze it, anything under 55, they're like, the humidity is not going to affect you at all. It's a great conditions to run fast. And between 55 and 60, it's going to impact you a little bit. In Berlin, when the world record was set in the middle of the race, the dew point was only 50. So it's definitely a little bit too humid, for what you would like. And then in terms of the wind, it's going to be 8-9 miles an hour, which is a little bit higher than what you'd like. For a major marathon. So to me, the big thing though is if it's raining. I mean, we saw Kipchoge a few years ago in Berlin. I think it was the year before this one. It started raining. He's like, I'm not even going for the world record. So if it's raining, I think we can rule out a 204. But maybe a 205 would be possible. What do you guys think of the times?
Yeah, 205. I think is probably the best bet because I mean, again, we saw what Kipchoge. I mean, Kipchoge, you gotta want similar conditions to what we'll have, and he ended up running 203.32. So that's maybe 90 seconds or something. So if you figure these guys are in like at the very best shape, that puts you like 205.30. Yeah, maybe I think 205 is probably the best bet because I do think there's so much quality that someone's going to run fast, but it's obviously not perfect.
Yeah, and I mean
the field's so strong. I'm just curious what they go out at that first half, unless the weather's atrocious and they get out on pace. I don't know. I just feel like a field of this caliber, I'm thinking they're going to go 204. I mean, that may be crazy with the weather and I don't know, the history of Chicago compared to Berlin or something. But I don't know. I'm just really impressed with this field and what they've assembled. And, I guess a lot of that sort of depends on the pacing and the quality of the rabbits, which are back, for the first time, I think 3 years in Chicago. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I think the American record, well, I guess Galen's the only hope. He could blow up or something. I think it's gone, but it's not perfect weather. But it's not as bad as I thought. I thought it was going to be a little bit warmer.
Yeah, 57 dew points not bad. I mean, under 55 is great. 57 is still run fast. Anything over 60 is not good. But I mean, we got to give props to Kirui for getting such a good field. I mean, there's 11 sub 208 men versus 7 from last year. The biggest difference is just the number of men in form. I mean, last year they went out in 66 minutes and only 4 guys could pick it up in the second half. Only 2 guys broke 210. I mean, one of the, anyways, I think that somebody had asked me, like, how big of an asterisk did I put next to Galen Rupp's win last year because the field was subpar. And I'm not putting any asterisks next to it. I mean, if you look at the New York City field, I mean, they were similar last year. I spent the morning doing research on how many sub 205, 206, 207 guys. I mean, New York last year had 5 sub 207 guys in it. Chicago last year had, 7 207 guys in it. Now, admittedly, many of those Chicago guys hadn't done it any time recently. But, in New York, they went out in 66 minutes. I mean, I think it was 66:11 in New York and 66:09 in Chicago, or maybe vice versa. And, in New York, only 2 guys broke 2. It's obviously a more difficult course, but only 2 guys broke 2:11 on that course. So, Rupp deserves to be a major champion. I mean, he has run so well in so many marathons. But the other guys, and it's probably an interesting question we had, I think, on Twitter today was, who would you take, Galen Rupp and Mo Farah or the field? Everybody else, or do you want Galen Rupp and Mo Farah? And I think it was like 55%, John. People were picking the field, correct? Which may be the smart call. I mean, because you got Garen, the Dubai champion, course record holder, 204 flat. Legacy, who ran 204.15 in his debut in that same race. Dixon Chamba earned his second Tokyo title in January, 204.32. Geoffrey Kirui, the 2016 champion, Chicago, 205.04 PB. And then you got the Water Jam champion, Kim Maloney, 205.44. And then Geoffrey Kirui, obviously, Suguru Osako, being in karaoke, he's been a fantastic half marathoner. He only got a 207.41. And then, of course, Yuki Koichi, Boston champ. I mean, I had a chance of winning this race, but 208.14. I mean, just so many good guys. A lot of crazy stuff. One thing about Farah that I think that gives him the edge back in the Rupp thing, even if Rupp was better with the longer stuff, we know that Farah's in supreme shape because he ran that 59:20-something half marathon a few weeks ago. Rupp had to pull out of his half. I mean, Rupp's never run a 59:20-something. So if Farah's properly training for the marathon, to run a 59:20-something in the middle of that is insane. I mean, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would say that's too fast. But the marathon has progressed. So if he's properly trained for the marathon and is that fast for the half marathon, it's going to be really hard to beat him. But 62 flat, to me, I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, wow, Mo wants to go. Mo's the man to beat. But to me, that's too fast. I mean, I think it would be better for Pinkowski from a race setup standpoint to go out in 62:30 because then maybe, Osaka could handle that, the Japanese record. Just there's only 3 guys in this field that ever broken 205. So to go out into a 4 flat pace seems the ideal way would be to go out 62:30 and try to pick it up. Try to run to a 4:30 or something like that. But pretty interesting stuff. So we only have about 10 minutes left. Should we talk a little bit about the women before we sign off? At least I have to sign off at 6 p.m. I have some babysitting duties.
I have
yes,
to go
we
then
should.
as well.
We can run the American men real quick because I don't know. Just real quickly, sort of want to run through those guys.
Yeah,
Luke
Busquedra's out. They already announced that he's got the flu. I was just gonna talk about Parker Stinson because that's who I spoke to today. So I feel like I've got some insight to add there. He's essentially saying he wants. Sorry for sort of hijacking you there, Weldon, but he said the quote that stuck with me was, "If I run 2:10, it changes my life. If I run 2:14, it doesn't." And he's basically, we made a big deal that there's no one has broken. No American apart from Rupp has broken 2:10 since Meb did it back in 2014, winning Boston. And Stinson's not going that far, but he said, he's putting it out there that he wants to run sub 2:11, and essentially he's like, look, what's the point? I'm going to be the same guy. If I run 2:12, 2:14, what's the difference? Whereas, you run 2:10, people take notice. That's for an American, that's a real big deal. So. He is sort of wondering who he's going to run with, because as you were listing the guys off, well, then, you have Elkanah Kibet, 2:11.31 in Chicago in 2015, but he hasn't really done much since then. Tyler McCandless ran a PR at CIM last year, 2:12.28. 2:12.28. Aaron Braun, his PR is a few years old, also 2:12.54. Kian Dardina, 2:12.56 from CIM. Andrew Bumbleau, who was fifth in Boston in the horrible conditions. He ran 2:13.58 last year. And then you got Stinson. I mean, it's not, after Rupp, it's not a super loaded field. But I think the way Stinson's thinking of it, at least, it's interesting to me. He wants to try to break through and make that next level and sort of separate himself from these other guys who are all in the sort of the 2:12, 2:13 range.
Yeah, and I applaud him. For those of you guys not familiar with him, at the Cal International last year, he went out on 2:10 pace through 20 miles, and he completely blew up and ran 2:18. And to be honest, I think that's what America needs. We're just not competitive at the marathon right now outside of Galen. I mean, 2:12, 2:13, you're like 10 minutes. You're more than 10 minutes. You're like 2 miles behind the world record. So I don't know. I mean, it's 2:11. It's 5-minute pace. It's very impressive. But somehow the goalposts need to shift. We need to get guys under 2:10. Hopefully, it's like at least like a sub 2:11 guy who makes the team behind Rupp. But I don't know. Right now, like Bernard Lagat could be in the Olympic team at 45, 46. I don't know what it'll be by then. But some of these guys have shown some promise in the past, or some good track times like Bumbleau or something. So, but I think it's hopefully time for somebody to step up and see what they can do. And I don't know, Stinson, he turned some heads last year at Cal International. It is a downhill course. So see what he can do. And I think he's going to go for it. And, I respect that a lot. That's going to get respect. It may not end out pretty with him, but he's at least tried it once. So it might help him in the long term. But let's turn to the women's race for the final few minutes of the show.
It's a shame. When I was talking about the Japanese record, I wanted to talk about that same 2012 Chicago race, just to bring up Weldon. Toshinara Takaoku of Japan ran 2:06.16, which was just recently beaten. But Weldon, you remember what happened in 2002 in Chicago?
2002, that's claim to fame. Paula Radcliffe's first world record.
Yes, folks, but also more importantly, Weldon Johnson's 2:18.10 marathon PD when he paced Radcliffe. PR came, he was actually pacing someone. Pretty interesting. I was actually looking at those results today, and Ben Rosario.
We're talking to the microphone.
He ran 2:29, so kind of interesting. I saw him in there. So let's go to one race. That was I wanted to talk about 2002 Weldon. So, anyways, I didn't realize the Japanese record Kanuchi won that race by 2:05 high. He set the American record, not there. He set that in London, 2:05.38, 2002 in London. He ran 2:05, I think, like 56 to win Chicago that year. But in the women's race, John, Dereje, Kipaghat, Dababa, all broke in 220. Bridget Koska and Sherry Demeke all broke in 221. They've done all of this stuff sort of fairly recently. Of those 5 women, I mean, after that, it's a huge drop off to Laura Threet and then maybe Gwen Jorgensen. And then, of course, we had the Greek record attempt by Alexi Papa in her debut. But of the big 5, who's your pick?
I'm going with Brigid Kosgei. She was the runner-up. I mean, you look at her resume. She was the runner-up here in Chicago last year to Dababa, who ran 2:18, blew everyone away. She was the runner-up in London this year to Vivian Chariot, who ran 2:18 and blew everyone away. And in between that, she set the course record at Honolulu Marathon by over 5 minutes. So, I think you put her in pretty much any other race in that, and she would have won at least one major. But she just got some bad luck with the competition she was facing. I don't think there's anyone nearly as good as those women in the field on Sunday. And I think that makes her the woman to beat.
And plus, one thing I like about her, I think that's a good pick, John, is she's one of the few women actually that has a prep race. I mean, it seems like people are doing prep races fewer.
Robert, you got to speak into your microphone more clearly. We can't hear you, buddy.
I said she's one of the few women. I think that's a good pick because she's one of the few women that we know is in good form. I mean, she ran a good prep race, 67:52 at the Great North Run. I mean, people are running fewer and fewer prep races, it seems like. But, she's a consistent performer. We know she's in shape. So I think she's a good pick. But also, I mean, Dereje, the 21-year-old who ran 2:19:17, I mean, in Dubai, that's impressive, and she's young. So I would have to go with one of those two. I think really, did you get a chance to talk to Jorgensen today, John? Any idea of what she's going to go for in terms of pace? I mean, to me, I know she wants to be a 220 woman, but to me, in this race, over-under, she's got to be able to break 230. I mean, she needs to be able to break 225 to make the Olympic team in a year. So any idea what she's going for?
No idea. She spoke very briefly. They brought her up on stage, the official press conference, and they asked her about what her goals were, and she said, they asked her what she was hoping to do, and she's saying, well, if I knew what I was going to do, I wouldn't be running the race. That's what you run the race, which is basically just a way of dodging the question. She hasn't really, we asked her that earlier this week. She didn't really share, and then she did not attend the one-on-one session where most of the other athletes were for one-on-one interviews. So Jorgensen remains a huge question mark. I think it's really interesting to see what she does, but I mean, I would at least like to know, what does she classify as a successful race? Does she think if she is breaking 230, is that good enough for her at this point in her progression, or is she wanting to break 227, or is it just about, who she beats and being the top American? And I think it's kind of difficult because we don't know how the race is going to play out. So the race could go a lot of different ways, and you run 225 one way is more impressive than running 225 another way. It's just you never quite know with how a marathon goes. But yeah, it's still a lot of question marks about Gwen.
Yeah, for me, it's sort of, I feel like, I don't know, anything over 230 is pretty bad. I mean, if she goes for it and blows up, it's a different thing than if she just even paces the 230. I feel like between 225, 227, 228, somewhere under there, you're starting to okay, that's a pretty good run, especially for an American. I mean, even like a 228, 230, you could think in another year she could come down 10 seconds a mile, and that puts her 4 minutes faster. And that could, around 225, that could get you on the team. If she goes sub 225 here, that's very good, really good. And then, you got to put her in the equation of being the top American. And I feel like a top American has a medal chance at the Olympics. The women's marathoning keeps changing. And I think the chance for a gold is very, very slim. Tokyo, it's going to be just a complete, shit show with the weather. I mean, Yuki Kawauchi, great profile by Jerry Longman, New York Times today, saying he's essentially saying I'm putting more emphasis on Eugene 2021 than Tokyo. This is a Japanese guy because he's I'm just not good in the heat. It's too hot for me. So there's just so many different things. But for Gwen first, she's got to make the team. And, it's very interesting. This is a big step. Laura Thweet's run 225.38. She's the favorite to be first American here. If Gwen tries to run with her and runs that same time, why can't she run what she runs? And then if that puts her at 225, that's very good. So, but that would, to me, would be a very good run for her. But I don't know. I mean, I think you guys would agree as well, right? At 225 is like a A+ for Gwen.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my pet peeves, I want to start an online petition and get the 2020 Olympic Marathon moved out of Tokyo. To me, it's absurd, dangerous, and whatever. I mean, it's a tough, people view Yuki Kawaichi as the toughest marathon in the world, and he doesn't even want to run. So it's really sort of disgraceful for our sport. They're going to be running this in potentially 90-degree weather. But I have to run, so I'm going to make my predictions for the win. I'm trying to figure out who I want to go with on the men's side. And I guess, wow, I mean, Kirui sure is good. John, did you get any Canova or his agent, how the training's been going with him? Any inside scoop? I'm tempted to pick him.
Didn't see Canova. Yeah, Canova's not coaching him anymore. He essentially uses Patrick Sang's system, but it was interesting. I was talking to him. He says he only comes down to Kaptaghat. He lives in Karangat and trains there most of the year, which is a very high altitude in Kenya. He only comes down to Kaptaghat for speed work, which he does in like a 3-week block, I guess, because there aren't really any tracks in Karangat. And he also said that the reason why he doesn't leave Karangat full time is because there's a group of runners there that he sort of mentors and acts as the group leader, and they need him there to lead that group. So that's why he stays in Karangat. But he said, I asked him how he was feeling. He said 100%. So he all seems good for him.
Yeah, I think he's the one that should win it. And I'm tempted to pick Farah because I've been arguing for years that Farah's nowhere close to being the GOAT. But then if he starts winning these marathons, then he could be the GOAT. Greatest of all time. Oh, gosh. I guess I go with Kirui for the win. I don't have any idea that he's good at pace races. So I'm going to go with Mo Farah for the win. Mo Farah for the win. And then I'm going to go with Koskai for the women's race.
Yep, I'll go with Kirui and Koskai.
I'm going to go with Farah as well. I guess we're twins, Robert. Can't believe we're all like not picking Galen Rupp. It is sort of crazy to think that Farah could be better at Rupp at 1,500 and the marathon. Like, this is a guy who was second in the Olympics in 10,000. Was fabulous at the marathon. But I don't know. Like, the run in London was very impressive. Kirui's never run a really bad marathon in my book. So, a lot of times the world championship, the guy at the championship marathon can't do it in the pace marathon. And Abel Kirui sort of, I mean, he's won a Chicago, but sort of with the championships that he's won is sort of indication of that. So give me Farah as well for the win. And yeah, Coast Guy. I guess I didn't get my woman's pick. I'm gonna go with Gwen Jorgensen, first American woman. Anyone still there? Maybe
no, I think we should wrap this. That's a sign that we should wrap this thing up. Robert appears to have gone, so I think I'm probably going to be kicked out of the media center in a few minutes. So I think we're pretty much done here.
All right, John, thank you for joining us. I wish I was in Chicago, but I've got a wedding coming up next weekend, and so I guess I'll content myself this weekend to. I'm now a New York City resident. I've got John, big baseball game tonight. My secondary team now, the New York Yankees, taking on the hated Boston Red Sox, John.
Yeah,
so,
that's the second most important game. Brighton got the win today, so Red Sox would be a bonus.
Yes, Jonathan Galt, the luckiest sports fan in the world. But everybody, should be a great one. 8:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, and this is on NBC Gold. John, are we in NBCSN as well?
I might be on the Olympic channel. I'm going to have to double check on that.
Olympic channel. Sorry, we'll have the TV viewing information up there, but there's no excuse not to see this one. Check the message boards. There'll be links. This race will be viewable, but wake up a little earlier than you would on Sunday to watch this one. But until Sunday morning, this is Weldon Johnson signing off for Let'sRun.com. Thank you, John.
Yep. Bye.